shouldn't be here.
But I guess that's just the way the story goes.
There's something terrible out there.
Moon Garden. This is another really weird one. Forgive me, there's not a lot of good movies out right now that I'm willing to see. Again, that changes really shortly, so thank God. Godzilla is soon. But who doesn't like an incredibly bizarre art house indie film shot on barely a budget, full of practical effects and sets and focused entirely on a 5-year-old child actor and having very strange and disturbing visuals, but not too much so as to be absolutely horrifying or, oh geez, yeah, this film really isn't for everyone. It's a very strange indie project with an incredibly minimal cast, home-built sets and makeup, and starring the director's own young daughter. On one hand, it's a shining achievement of what someone can do with filmmaking and techniques, while on the other hand, it's a bit of a mashup of pretentiousness coupled with very odd plot choices that feel a bit too heady for the audience. Clearly, the director, Ryan Stevens Harris, knows how to shoot interesting scenes and use very neat cinematography shots in effective mannerisms. And he knows sound design very well too. The sets are impressively built and his work of the camera is top notch as well. This is very much his movie and he takes care of all of it. However, the story itself is a bit unwieldy. Moon Garden mostly follows the strange dreams of a young child after she is sent into a coma after experiencing her parents fighting and running away and having an accident. She must traverse the strange environment, deal with even stranger residents of the dream world, and escape an ominous, faceless demon known as Teeth, who's chasing her ceaselessly for reasons. It's an interesting premise and it's handled really well for how much practical sets could be used to portray the dream world. However, a lot of the sets are pretty small and dark, giving the sense that most of the movie was built and shot in the director's basement, which it very much might have been. Some of the sets are simple, like a tunnel made out of bed sheets that use shadows to give the impression of dangers, while others are a little more complicated, involving miniatures and puppets and wider shots that are very clearly still shot in small areas. And others employ very interesting and creative cinematography approaches, such as destroying sets in reverse, using mirror effects, and even perspective shifts, all the while looking like something you could do at home, because it is all things that you can do at home. That's actually really cool. Moon Garden definitely takes a win for its creativity alone, and it's not easy to guess where the story is going to go, which is great for when you're trying to go through a dream world and focus on strange new occurrences and characters. You don't want to be able to guess what's going to come next in this bizarre world. Unfortunately, the movie does start to lack in story execution and with some general editing choices. For one odd example, each various segment that the young girl goes through, about halfway through, the film fades out and back in, most times on the same shot. Like when you're watching anime on Netflix and it skips the mid bumpers. It's a really bizarre choice that makes the film feel like it was pieced together from short vignettes posted online or something, which doesn't seem to be the case at all from what I can find. I don't know why they're there then, and it really took me out of the experience. I very much did not like it at all. It's just a very strange choice that detracts from the overall film. Other notable bits are a few times where ADR was used with an obviously different actress when the young girl either couldn't or wouldn't say the right lines. That's more of a nitpick than anything else, but I feel the better option would have been to cut the lines entirely. They didn't add anything to the plot, and she was essentially talking to herself in those moments, so The story overall is decent, but it frustrates me by not following through. It opens up with a mother ushering her daughter into a car to run away from her husband, but ends up breaking down, unable to leave. Through flashbacks further on in the story, you can see how the relationship between the parents starts to break down and become depressive and very toxic. But that's it. Which sounds like a good setup, and then no resolution or really anything. There's talk about their relationship in the movie, but it's done in the background, and what feels like it should have been the focus, it's never fully resolved or explained. At some points, the father seems overly aggressive, but never violent, and at other times, the mother feels overly dejected and mean for no reason. I get the point is to show the parents' degrading relationship through the eyes of their child who doesn't understand and is too young to understand, and a lot of the memories therefore are exaggerated, especially with various things like color swaps. There's one part where the young girl is in the background and the father is in a very dark room just consumed with a red light and the rest is black, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's very oppressive, that's very meaningful, but that's it. Nothing concrete is ever told about these two, and then there's no finality at all. You never know if they break up or if they stay together. They just kind of share a look at the end and you're left with that. There are so many unanswered questions surrounding the parents and their relationship, and it just makes it feel like a huge part the movie completely forgot about, despite being a very, very major theme throughout the dreamland and the various characters that this young girl meets. It's very, very weird. I know a lot of it is supposed to be interpretation and metaphor, but it's not anything final, and it doesn't really contribute to the overall message here. The rest of the film is pretty art house flair generic, kinda sorta. There's nothing really generic with art house, but come on. The director really wants you to know that this was shot on expired 35mm film stock, as the idea was this to come off like a movie you might find forgotten in an attic somewhere, which, yeah, that's how it sounds. Otherwise, it's all surrealist. It's been compared to Mad God, for example. Check out my review for that up in the corner. But I think that this film is its own thing. I don't think it really can be compared to Mad God, as it's a very different, surreal movie. The horror in this is very pulled back, very toned down. The scariest thing being in this weird environment is the strange faceless demon with chattering teeth that floats around in an admittedly really cool way, but then doesn't really seem all that intimidating. It's played really, really well by Morgana Ignis as a creature actor, with some really cool makeup and shots that allow the creature to disappear into its clothes or twist itself into various positions, which all look really cool. This thing does look amazing on screen whenever it's there, but otherwise, that's it. It kind of just looks cool, and yeah. There's at some points where it can be intimidating, and then all of it just fades away. Some metaphors in this dreamscape are obvious, like a beeping light at the beginning, or one of the girl's toys coming to life later as a giant puppet, which is something else, or even later when a character repeats the mother's words as she speaks to her comatose daughter. Others are a bit too surreal, like Teeth's ultimate goal, which I'm not going to spoil, but I still don't fully understand and is just very strange, and weird characters that the girl meets. I'm sure that they have solid reasoning to exist and metaphors attached to them, some of them more obvious than others, but it brings to mind a lot of similarly symbolic projects that just get a bit too cerebral. Looking at you, the cell, and your ask me what it means shtick. Overall, I really, really want to like this movie more than I do. It's an extremely solid indie fantasy on a relatively small scale that champions DIY effects, but it stumbles hard when it comes to cohesive side narrative. It looks amazing, and the acting by a 5-year-old is impressive, but there just didn't really feel like there were many stakes here at all. And despite dealing with incredibly heavy and complicated themes, it feels much more like a toned-down adventure. That shouldn't be the case. It really, really shouldn't. There needs to be more powerful, meaningful stakes and actions here. The danger needs to be real, and the side story needs to be fleshed out much, much more. Honestly, I feel like the film, following the deterioration of the parents' condition and then working through their child's accident to either break down more or come together, would be a lot more interesting to watch. And it's only vaguely explored in the child's mind. I get the journey through the child's dream is the focus, but this really should have tied much more into the parent story. They're way more interesting. I feel like this movie did succeed in what it was trying to do, but it could have benefited from a few rewrites and shifting focus slightly. Too much feels brought up only to be dropped in favor of, ooh, wouldn't this be cool? I can see why critics really enjoy this film, but for me, I get a little frustrated because I want a lot more than what it's willing to put out. I'm saying that knowing full well of the limitations. I feel like that's probably because this movie was made to feel so that the literal child could watch this without being too scared or traumatized, but then that direction made this film just too soft, unable to fully explore everything else that it touches and have mature conversations about the parents and things like that. It's a decent movie overall, and again, a champion for low budget DIY filmmaking, but otherwise it's just not something I really enjoyed or would watch again. But that's my personal view. By all means, give it a watch if you want to see something new and interesting. Maybe you'll have a different take. I feel if you want something with a bit more meat on its bones that wants to challenge you a bit more mentally, you'd be better off finding something else like La Casa Lobo. Ultimately, Moon Garden gets a 6 out of 10 from me. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for another one. I've said it before, and I do like art house films, but this one kind of bugs me. It really needed to be explored just a little bit more than what we got, and it's just really frustrating. There are better, smaller movies that explore darker themes, that don't have the gore or too disturbing visuals. Not counting Mad God, that is made for adults. Very disturbing visuals and adult things in there. But other things like La Casa Lobo, which even though it is short, it is a stop motion with very disturbing visuals, but is not gory or traumatizing for, say, a child to watch. This is definitely something that you can sit a 5-year-old down and have them watch, which I get is the point, but at the same time, it's not something that I can really enjoy, especially when you don't fully investigate and talk about the parents' condition. Again, there's so much more interesting than this child going through a dream world, which shouldn't be the case. I get they're intertwined, but they're just not intertwined nearly enough, and it doesn't explore it nearly as deep, and it doesn't leave it off on any conclusion that feels acceptable to me. I feel like they were the main characters. They needed so much more to be explored and more closure, maybe through the eyes of the child. That's fine, but their relationship and how they're struggling with each other is still such a huge thing in this movie that doesn't go anywhere, and that bugs me. I want to know what happens. I want to know if they fix their issues or if they ultimately end up breaking up. What happens? All I know is the fate of this little girl and nothing else. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you like this movie? Do you like the message? Do you understand something that maybe I'm missing? It's an art house. It's open to interpretation. That's it. Let me know in the comments below. After that, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a video. And yeah, that's it for now. Have a great day, and if you're not, have a better one. See ya.
I'm just a ghost in your stereo, the fading memory of a shipwreck in the undertow. You're just a lost soul alone, and I'm just a ghost in your stereo.